what makes or breaks a website's performance.
Stuff that really matters.
Especially how it performs on Google.
We're talking SEO.
Search engine optimization. And look, this isn't just for the techies out there.
Not at all.
This is for anyone with a website, really.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
You could have the best online store, right? Amazing products. But if it takes forever to load,
forget it.
Or people can't find what they're looking for, they're gone.
On to the next one.
Exactly. And that's where SEO comes in. Make sure your website is, well, it's the life of the party.
Instead of that one awkward guest no one wants to talk to.
Exactly. Fast, easy to navigate, all the good stuff.
Okay, so let's get into it. We've got this SEO audit in front of us, right? For hoboweb.co.uk.
Okay.
It's like getting a peek behind the curtain. Seeing how Google sees this website.
It's like a report card almost.
Yeah, but instead of grades, it's all about rankings.
And this audit is comprehensive. It digs deep into all sorts of technical stuff, the stuff Google uses to rank a website.
But we're talking, what, core web vitals?
Yeah, core web vitals, mobile friendliness, all of it.
Core web vitals. Okay, that sounds important.
It is.
But honestly, also kind of intimidating.
I can see that.
Can you break that down for us? What are we really talking about there?
Okay, so imagine you walk into a shop, right?
Okay.
But the doorway is jammed. People are crammed in, waiting forever just to get inside.
Oh, I've been there. It's the worst.
Are you going to stick around?
Not a chance.
Right. So Core Web Vitals, that's Google's way of seeing if your website is that cramped doorway.
Oh, I see.
Or welcoming entrance.
Want it.
Is it loading quickly? Is it easy to use even on your phone? Does the layout jump around like crazy? It's all about user experience.
Okay, and Google, they're all about keeping users happy. Makes sense.
Happy user, happy Google.
All right, so the audit flags something called largest contentful paint, LCP.
Right.
What is that exactly?
So LCP, it's all about first impressions. How long does it take for the main thing on a page to load? That hero image, a big chunk of text, you want that to be fast, like 2.5 seconds fast.
Okay, and if it's not, what happens then? What's the damage?
Well, they found that for Farfetch, the online fashion platform.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Every 100 millisecond reduction in their LCP led to, get this, a 1.3% increase in conversions.
Wait, seriously? Just by making their site a tiny bit faster?
That's the power of speed.
Wow. But it's not just about how fast the page loads initially, right? I mean, the audit also mentions something called first input delay, FID. What's that all about?
FID. This is about responsiveness. So imagine you click a button on a website.
And nothing happens.
And it takes ages to respond.
The worst.
The worst, right?
Yeah.
FID measures that delay between the click and the website actually doing something.
It's like trying to use a touchscreen with a mind of its own.
The frustration is real.
Right.
And Google knows it. Nobody wants a laggy website.
Okay, so we've covered speed, responsiveness. What else is hiding in these core web vitals? The audit mentions cumulative layout shift, CLS. Now that just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
You know when you're about to click on something and the whole page shifts?
Oh, yeah, and you end up clicking on a completely different thing.
Infuriating.
The worst.
That's CLS in action. Unexpected layout shifts drive users bonkers, and Google measures it because a low CLS score, much smoother user experience.
Okay, that makes sense, and I've definitely felt that frustration myself. The audit actually says that Yahoo Japan saw like a 15% increase in page views just by reducing their CLS score.
Yeah, people were actually sticking around longer.
Amazing what a difference it makes.
It shows that it's not just about making your website look pretty, right? It's got to work well, too, for the people actually using it.
So these core web vitals, they're like the foundation of a good website, right? Making sure it's fast, it's responsive, it's easy to use. But what about the stuff that's actually on those pages, the actual content? Surely Google cares about more than just the technical stuff.
Oh, absolutely. We've only scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
Think of these technical elements like the foundation of a house. Now we need to build the rest of it.
And that's where the content comes in. Okay, so we've talked about speed, responsiveness, all those technical bits, but now I'm really curious about the actual content on a website. I mean, a site can be lightning fast, but if the information is,
Totally. A website can be like a perfectly tuned race car.
Okay.
But if there's no engine,
it's going nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Useless. And that's where the content comes in.
And this SEO audit we're looking at, it dives into something called EEAT. I have to admit, it sounds a little bit like, I don't know.
A health food brand.
Yeah. like at a new kind of granola bar or something.
Right.
But something tells me it's a bit more complicated than that.
It is a little more involved than your average snack food.
Okay.
So EEAT stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
Okay.
It's Google's way of sizing up your content.
So they're like checking your website's credentials, making sure it's legit.
Exactly. Especially for what they call your money or your life pages. YMYL.
YMYL. All right, that sounds kind of serious.
It is.
What kind of websites are we talking about here?
We're talking about sites that provide advice or information that could directly impact someone's, well, their health, their finances, their safety.
Big stuff.
The important stuff. Things like medical websites, financial planning, legal advice, even, relationship counseling.
Okay, so my cat blog probably wouldn't qualify as YMYL then.
Probably not.
Right.
Unless you're giving out some really stellar life advice alongside those cat photos.
Maybe some perfect relationship tips?
Exactly. But you see the point. Google, they apply a much stricter set of standards to these YMYL sites because the stakes are so much higher.
Right, there's real potential for harm if the information's wrong.
Exactly.
But how does a website prove its EEAT to Google? It's not like you have to submit your resume, right?
A formal resume, no.
Yeah.
But it's all about demonstrating your credentials, building trust. Let's say you're a doctor and you're writing about, a specific health condition on your website. You want to make sure your qualifications are front and center. Cite your sources. Yeah. Link to relevant research. Be transparent about your experience.
So it's like saying, hey, Google, look, I'm not just some random person on the internet. I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. You've got to showcase that expertise. And not just for Google, right? For the people visiting your site, too.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the big picture stuff, EEAT, making sure your content is trustworthy. Now, I'm curious about some of the smaller details, the audit flag, like it mentions missing alt text on images.
Ah, yes.
Why is that such a big deal? Seems like a pretty minor thing.
It might seem minor, but alt text is important for a couple of big reasons. First, accessibility. For users who are visually impaired and use screen readers to navigate the web, alt text provides a description of what's in that image.
Oh, right. So they can understand what's there, even if they can't see it.
Exactly. And then for Google, it helps them understand what that image is about. Can even boost your ranking in image search results.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so even these little things can make a difference.
They really can. The audit also pointed out some internal links without descriptive anchor text.
Okay, remind me again, anchor text is?
Anchor text is that clickable text in a hyperlink.
Right.
And using more descriptive text there, it just gives both users and Google a better understanding of what they're clicking on.
Got it. So instead of just saying something generic like, click here, it's better to be more specific, like, learn more about EET.
Perfect example. Gives it context. And speaking of details, the audit flags something that often gets overlooked, but it's super important for security. Missing content security policy headers.
Content security policy headers. That sounds pretty intense. What are those, and why should we care?
Think of them like security guards for your website. They tell the browser which sources are allowed to load resources for your site. Things like scripts, images, helps prevent malicious code from sneaking in, protects both your website and your users.
So it's like a digital bouncer, keeping the bad actors out.
Exactly. And you always want a good bouncer.
All right, so we've covered a lot here, from EEAT, making sure your content is top-notch, to these seemingly smaller details that can actually make a big difference. What are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the big takeaway here is that website performance and SEO, they're not separate things. They're totally intertwined. It's not enough to have a fast, functional website. You need to make sure your content is high quality, trustworthy, and following those Google guidelines we talked about.
It's like building a house, right? You need a strong foundation, but you also need well-crafted walls, a solid roof.
I love that analogy. And just like a well-designed house, a well-optimized website, it's going to provide a better experience for everyone.
Okay, so we've gone through all this, right? Talking about optimizing websites, all these different factors.
Not to consider.
It is. But how does this actually relate to, like, the average person just browsing the web?
That's the thing about SEO. It's not just about pleasing the Google robots.
Right.
It's about creating a good experience for the actual humans who visit your site.
Because, let's face it, if a website is clunky, slow to load, hard to navigate...
people bounce. They're gone.
Exactly. And I feel like even if we don't realize it, we pick up on those subtle cues, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know if a website looks outdated or I see typos, it just makes me trust it less.
Absolutely. And Google, they're picking up on those cues too.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They're tracking things like how quickly people leave a site, how long they stay on a page.
So they're watching our every move.
In a way, yes. And they use that data to figure out which websites are providing a good user experience.
That's kind of wild. So it's not just about, like, checking boxes off a list of SEO to-dos. It's about actually thinking about the humans on the other side of the screen.
Exactly. When you make a website that's enjoyable to use, people are more likely to stick around, check out your content, maybe even become a customer.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
So for our listeners who are now inspired to give their own websites an SEO makeover, where should they start?
Well, I always recommend starting with a good old-fashioned website audit. And luckily, Google offers a free tool for that, Google Page Speed Insights.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a great starting point. You just plug in your website and it analyzes things like your core web vitals, gives you specific recommendations for improvement.
Okay, so it's like a free consultation with a website expert.
Pretty much.
Perfect. And I think the important thing to remember is that SEO isn't a one-time thing.
It's a journey.
Yes. You're constantly learning, adapting, trying to keep up with those ever-changing algorithms.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Well said. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of website performance and SEO. We've covered a lot of ground, from those technical foundations to the importance of high-quality content.
And remember, at the end of the day, a well-optimized website is a win-win for everyone. Your users get a better experience, and you might even see those Google rankings climb a bit higher.
Music to every website owner's ears. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy optimizing.